Yeah. I'm always ready when it's game time. Hustle in my blood, I'ma make mines. Where I'm trying to go, it's gonna take time. You can earn your respect, I'ma take mine. In a lane of my own, I'm in the zone.
Hello and welcome to Going the Distance, where we share stories of faith, sports, and everything in between. Well, for the 5th consecutive season, the Golden State Warriors are headed to the NBA Finals after a sweeping of the Portland Trail Blazers 4-0. Now, what amazes me about this team is their ability to stay poised after being down by 17 points or more. But hey, that's what happens when the bulk of the team shoots above 40%. Steph Curry finished the series averaging a career-high 36 points, which is the most points any player has averaged in a 4-game sweep in league history. And his 26 three-pointers also set a record for most in the first 4 games of a series. And listen, stats are great, but what's most interesting to me is the chemistry that this team has. According to Steph Curry, a lot of it has to do with the shared faith in Christ. Here's a quote from him about just that.
You ask anybody in their walk of faith, it's all about finding accountability partners and finding people that can encourage you in your walk. Knowing nobody's perfect, we all have very similar temptations, struggles through our entire walk of faith. So for us on the court, we all grind and compete on the floor. So why not grind and compete in our spiritual walk together as well? We have a group chat, we call it the discipleship group, where we share Bible verses every single day and kind of do a Bible study through text message. Every game day, we have 10, 11 guys show up for the 30-minute Bible study and prayer service. Daily encouragement, that's the biggest thing.
Well, I have to say, that camaraderie shows up on the court. I don't believe there is a team in the NBA that gels as well as this team. So I can't wait to see what they do in the finals. We'll be right back after this. But welcome back. In Matthew 4:19, Jesus says, "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." And for brothers Al and Ron Lindner, that's the story of their lives. Here's Tim Brandon.
In the world of fishing, Ron and Al Lindner have been household names for decades. The two brothers built America's largest multimedia sports fishing network on a simple idea.
Teaching America how to catch fish is our business. This was our motto. Yeah. That was a motto we used, and it was true.
It's true still. That's our strength.
Yeah.
That's our strength.
Yeah.
They're also teaching America a lot more than just how to catch a fish.
This is the story that God is sharing with you. He's telling you how much He loves you, cares about you, wants to spend eternity with you. That's why He sent His Son Jesus to die for the sins of mankind.
But in the early days, sharing the love of Jesus was the last thing on their minds. Born 10 years apart, the two grew up in a Catholic blue-collar home in Chicago. Nothing could compete with their passion for fishing.
I knew when I was 12 years old that I was going to make a living fishing, and I would tell everybody that.
To fund their days on the water, they started making and selling fishing lures out of their parents' basement.
We could go around Chicago to the bait shop, the various sports stores, and we sold them. We had a regular little business going.
We made little jigs, and they were called the Pinky Jig. And it was a great jig to catch crappies and bluegills and white bass in that area.
It's still good.
Then in 1968, Al, a 17-year-old high school junior, and Ron, a 27-year-old husband and father, established the Lindner Manufacturing Company. It was then they came up with their world-famous Lindy rig, a design that would revolutionize walleye fishing. But the brothers would have to put their business and dreams on hold when Al was drafted and sent to Vietnam.
He's in Vietnam. I'm praying constantly. Now, I got to explain something to you. Neither of us are born again. He, not at all. I am, at the time, I'm a Christian, quote unquote, but not born again. I believed in God. I believed that Jesus was somehow the Son of God. I didn't know how, and the Holy Spirit, I didn't know nothing. Nothing at all about that.
Sitting in a foxhole with bombs exploding everywhere, Al was also praying.
I knew enough where I cried out to God. I says, "Look, got in my words at the time. I said, I don't want to be here. Please, God, get me out of this thing.
Al, of course, made it out alive, but his foxhole prayer quickly faded. Soon he married, started a family, and moved to Minnesota with Ron on their way to making fishing history. But as their lures started landing in tackle boxes across the country and their fishing shows becoming wildly popular, Ron started feeling the pressure. The once casual drinker now needed alcohol to get through the day.
These things happened out of nowhere, and a lot of times, literally to cope with it, I had to take another one.
He was driving home one day after a weekend of drinking when a preacher on the radio got his attention.
I can't argue. I could have argued with somebody, all right, I didn't murder nobody, I didn't rob him. I can't argue that I'm not a drunkard. I am one. And I'm not going to inherit the kingdom of God. That's it.
So Ron didn't resist when his wife, Dolores, invited him to a church revival service.
And he says, do you accept Jesus as your Savior? Yes. Boom. 44 years old. That night, a little town, a little backwoods town in Minnesota, Jesus Christ come and visited me.
And delivered him from alcohol. With a new perspective, Ron and others started talking to his brother about Jesus. But Al quickly cast those ideas aside, even to the point of making excuses for not praying with his kids at bedtime.
Dad prays to God when he's alone with him later tonight. That was my answer, because I didn't know how to pray.
One night, God would use a loving child's simple request to capture a man's heart. It happened as Al was putting his 4-year-old son, Troy, to bed.
Puts like a kiss on my cheek, and he says, Dad, it's just you and I. Can I hear how you pray to God when you're alone with him? It tore me. It tore I got up, I did not know what to say.
Finally, Al opened up his heart to Jesus Christ.
I got up, I walked into the bathroom, and I cried like a baby. And it was at that moment in time that I knew that I mean, all the barriers were gone.
The brothers would go on to sell their business in 1998 and launch a new show called Angling Edge. They're still teaching people how to fish, but more importantly, how to know Jesus Christ.
The Lord laid that on my heart to do this television show after we sold In Fisherman, do it and close, give me glory and honor with the truth of my word in the Bible, and close something that I have done in your life.
Today, Ron and Al take a little more time for themselves and their wives, taking up the slack for their children and grandchildren, carrying on the tradition of sharing their passion for fishing and faith in Jesus Christ.
And it's been an amazing blessing, and the glory goes to God in all categories, and he's still blessing the socks off of it.
Yeah.
Wow. That is so close to the story of Peter and his brother Andrew, who were also fishermen when Jesus spoke to them in Matthew 4:19. Amazing. Well, look, we'll be right back after this. Welcome back. For years, sportscaster Ernie Johnson has entered living rooms across the country as co-host of TNT's Inside the NBA. And I'm sure a lot of you have been watching him through the NBA playoffs. But what you see on television is just a portion of a man that has a lot of depth to him and has embraced a life that has truly been unscripted. Here's Will Dawson.
He's one of the most respected broadcasters in sports. Best known for the 9-time Emmy Award-winning Inside the NBA, with co-hosts Charles Barkley, Kenny Smith, and Shaquille O'Neal.
We're just like 4 guys sitting around in a living room watching a game. A lot of times the guy who's loudest gets heard.
Much of the show's appeal lies in its offbeat, unscripted nature, led by Ernie, who in another unscripted moment gave me a tutorial tying his signature bow tie.
So this is the trademark NBA bow tie here.
Yeah, this is pressure now.
That's one take.
I mean to tell you, that was ice water in the veins.
Ernie Johnson gives up a center field single to Campanella.
Ernie Johnson Sr. was a major league pitcher and later became the voice of the Atlanta Braves on TBS, giving Ernie Jr. a front row seat to baseball and a love for sports.
You go down to the field and you're hanging out in the batting cage and Hank Aaron is asking you how your Little League team is doing. It was pretty good.
Good morning, now 8:25 and 40.
Ernie would follow in his father's footsteps, not in baseball, but in broadcasting, working his way up through small market stations. That's when he met Cheryl. The two married and were on their way to an idyllic life. In 1990, Ernie got his big break when TNT asked him to become the NBA host.
On the outside, it would appear that we've got it all. And I've kind of followed my script at that point. Beautiful wife, great job, a boy and a girl that we had. You know, why mess with this?
That's when the scripted life became unscripted.
Cheryl sees this ABC special on 2020 about these Romanian orphans being warehoused, especially the ones with disabilities.
I said, I think we're supposed to adopt a Romanian child. And he laughed.
She kind of shook my head at first, like, oh, then I was like, you're serious? We had told the adoption agency we're looking for a little girl under a year old, no permanent handicaps, that we could give a fresh start in the United States. Turns out the first child that she sees at an orphanage is this little boy who's almost 3.
And his legs were curled up and he couldn't speak and he was terrified of everything. And I called Ernie from Romania that night and I said, well, I saw this little boy and he doesn't meet any of the criteria, but I don't think I can live my life wondering what happens to him.
And I can hear in her voice that her heart has been moved in a way I've never seen it. I said, bring him home.
Michael Johnson came home in 1991 and was diagnosed with muscular dystrophy. Doctors said he would never talk and he would never bond with anyone.
He walked, he certainly talks, and he bonds with everybody.
Through all this, he becomes this remarkable influence on people because he's got this tremendous spirit.
2 years later, Ernie and Cheryl adopted again. And while life at home and work were busy, Ernie's career couldn't have been better. The only thing missing was church. Ernie thought it would be good for the kids. Turned out he was the one affected.
And we walk in, and within the first 2 weeks, I was getting pierced. And the more I heard, and the mere fact that I was opening the Bible at the age of 41, why have I kept this hidden away and closed for so long? And so it basically went from a me-centered existence to a Christ-centered existence.
2003 was a big year for the NBA on TNT. They would televise their first All-Star game, and Ernie couldn't have been more excited. But just days before the game, Ernie discovered something that would make 2003 a big year for all the wrong reasons.
And I'm shaving on this side, and I could see a bump that would raise when I made my face like this to do this. And I said, that's strange. I came up with a million different things that it could be. I said, it'll go away on its own. And it didn't.
So Ernie finally decided to get it checked out.
He thought it was what's called a benign parotid tumor.
But at least it alleviated your fears somewhat that it wasn't most likely cancer.
Yeah, because he used the word benign, and I was like, boom, good. He said, but if you want a second opinion, I can set that up for you.
The second opinion confirmed his worst fears. Ernie had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, an incurable but treatable form of cancer. And now he had to break the news to Cheryl and his kids.
I said, it's cancer. I mean, I don't know how else to come out and say it. I don't wish that on any person.
He was scared, and we were all scared.
Ernie sought advice from his pastor, but he really just wanted to vent.
I said, Kevin, right now, what I want to do is punch God right in the nose. Now, where are we right now? Are we trust with a question mark? And he's writing this stuff down on a brown Starbucks napkin. Are we going to trust God if? We're going to trust God when? Are we going to trust with a question mark? Or are we going to trust God, period? And we're looking at looking at John 9, and I'm looking at Jesus and the disciples with the blind man at the side of the road. But Jesus is basically saying, you're asking the wrong thing, guys. Not why did this happen? How's my Father going to use it? And from that day on, it became my mantra. Trust God, period.
Ernie, there was a time during that process that you became resolved to beat this thing.
Sure.
When did that happen?
Once you're told after those tests, okay, here's what you got and here's what you're going to do, then you just put your head down and go. Then you compete.
And that's exactly what he did. Ernie's cancer battle was very public. And with a renewed trust in God, he never missed a show.
Thanks to all you guys, and thanks to everybody out there who sent me emails and letters and phone calls and everything else.
But so you know what the first thing everybody does when you first get the ball head is?
But, of course.
Yeah, baby.
Dealing with his cancer head-on through treatments, Ernie got the news in 2007 he was cancer-free. Things were back on track. But in 2011, his dad and best friend passed away. As he came to grips with the loss of his father, just 2 months later, Ernie got a call. His son Michael's life was in danger.
And she's on the phone with me, and she's got a doctor there, and she says, we need permission to intubate. We need permission to put something down his throat to help him breathe. And I said, and if we don't, and he said, your son's gonna die.
Michael was put on a ventilator. He would spend the next 9 weeks in the hospital before finally coming home. He would never come off the ventilator, so Ernie and Cheryl turned Michael's bedroom into an at-home ICU.
We're very clear he's borrowed. We want to borrow him as long as we can.
Toughest guy I know, by the way. Yeah, this kid's been through so much. We have to do everything with Michael. We've got to scratch every itch. We've got to take care of every need. And for us, there's something that is deeply spiritual there, because you wake up in the morning to serve. And while Cheryl and I have, went into that whole adoption thing saying maybe we can do something for somebody else to give them a better life, he's done more for us than we've done for him. When I see the impact Michael's had with his limited capabilities, when I look at my own personal episode with cancer, this is another page in this story that God's written for my life. When you've seen what he's done in the past, say, okay, I'm going to trust again. I'm not going to trust if. Hey, God, if this test comes back okay, you and me, we're boys. Nah, it's not a question mark, not a comma, not an if, not a when. It's trust God, period.
It's not a question mark, not a comma, not an if, not a when. It's trust God, period. Sometimes in life, things happen that you don't plan for. That's why in Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding. Because we don't know what the Lord knows, and we can't see what the Lord can see. And like Ernie, all of our lives are unscripted. We are literally building the story as we live. We just have to trust the Lord. Ernie's released a book entitled Unscripted, The Unpredictable Moments That Make Life Extraordinary. And you can find it wherever books are sold. We'll be right back after this. Well, I'd like to thank you for joining us. And I want to leave you with this verse from Philippians 3, verses 13 and 14, where Paul says, brothers and sisters, I do not consider myself yet to have taken hold of it. But one thing I do, forgetting what is behind and straining towards what is ahead. I press on toward the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Jesus Christ. So hey, whatever you're going through, press on. And that starts with faith and creating a vision in your mind of where God is taking you. Because life is short. Go the distance.